concept. Um, Asperger's, this is also kind of nitpicky, but I'm extremely high quotient testing for ASD and the cluster of other mental illnesses that surround it. So like schizoaffective, bipolar, ADHD, depression, anxiety, uh, ASD, and I might be missing one or two, but all of those disorders are comorbid. So you have a high percentage of having certain interactions if you have them. It's not like a one-to-one between all of them, but they do have high likelihoods. So if you have ASD, you have a high likelihood of having ADHD and or schizoaffective or bipolar, and then that leads to anxiety and depression as symptomatic illnesses. Um, and following on from that, Asperger's is no longer a diagnosis in the DSM. It's ASD, which is that's just a little nitpicky thing, really. But Asperger's is like a subtype, and OCD, sorry, is one of the other disorders that is related to that cluster of mental illnesses. And you like claim to have OCD traits, which and this is again just sort of nitpicky from like having autism myself sort of thing. I fully understand like the emotional reaction you're having, but also you've kind of just got to temper yourself, and I understand that's really difficult a lot of the times. But there is literally a physical mute button, so like if you just don't press that button, it kind of solves all your problems. I don't mean that to sound sarcastic. That's just the dry way of speaking that I have. But you know, having something like that where you can like physically restrain yourself is probably really helpful. Because it just doesn't attribute to the flow of conversation or to the discussion of ideas or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like you can't have a productive conversation. And onto that point, a lot of the accusations you were making towards the room and to GP specifically were loaded gun fallacies and slippery slope fallacies, which I find kind of funny because you were claiming that everything he was saying was a straw man fallacy, and whilst you were claiming he was straw man fallacying you, you were avoiding a question, which is a straw man fallacy. And the loaded gun fallacy is when you have a line of questioning where you say there's only this option or only this option. So it's like you're holding a loaded gun to them, and no matter what option they choose, they're kind of fucked. So had GP have said, "Oh yeah, I'm totally protecting this cabal," obviously that's not a good thing. And even if he tries to deny you, you set up the other side of the argument where he doesn't really have a way to come out constructively, which then leads into the fact that that whole like experience we all just went through um, ties into the title of the space so perfectly. Like, like the loaded gun fallacies and everything. This is what I've written. Like, I feel like it was a pretty good tagline, so I'll read it verbose. Highly politicized loaded gun fallacies to entrap us with sound bites as a method of disenfranchisement and psyops and mind games. So comes into a space, completely derails us, and talks about something that's like barely related, and causes a whole lot of you know, like emotional turmoil that we then have to recover from. And yeah, it's extremely distracting, and also had it have gone differently, you know, if we didn't have GP there to punch an oak tree, um, you know, it could potentially lead to, you know, some sort of political turmoil for us, considering the brevity of the accusations he was making. Um, yeah, homosexuality, yep, 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 yep. Okay, I think I'm almost done. Thank you for um writing down really helps, by the way. Like it really does. It helps you structure your thoughts so you're not going over them multiple times. Like you brought up the same topics a lot of times without letting any responses happen, which was, again, that's just like doesn't really go with the flow of a conversation. Um, like there's a line between having thoughts and like acting on them, and sort of like that distinguishment. You know, but yeah, that distinction between like actually being a pedophile and just having like pedophilic thoughts. And I thought it was really interesting because one of the really common parts of OCD is having intrusive thoughts, and these intrusive thoughts are often reported as being violent, self-harming, or pedophilic. And their intrusive thoughts are extremely uncharacteristic, but it does like illustrate that line between having a thought whether that's sort yours and like whether you act on it, whether you have the impulse control, the self-regulation, and or like the moral code. Um, okay, yeah.